What if the reason you cannot recover has nothing to do with how much you sleep? Let me say that again, because most people have spent years chasing the wrong answer. You've tried the 8 hours, you've tried the melatonin, you've tried cutting the screens at 9 o'clock at night, and you wake up the next morning and your body feels like it ran a marathon in your sleep. Your jaw is clenched, your shoulders are already up near your ears, and by 10 in the morning, you are already mentally exhausted, even though you technically rested. Here is what nobody is telling you. There is a specific type of fatigue, one that is completely invisible on your blood work, that no sleep tracker can measure, and it has nothing to do with how many hours you spent in bed. It is what happens when your nervous system gets locked into a state of permanent readiness. Your brain is on, your body is running, and the off switch, it has been quietly disconnecting itself for months, maybe years, without you even noticing it was going. Today, we are going to decode that, all of it. I am going to show you the biological mechanism behind why high-functioning, driven people are the most likely to crash, and why the solution is not about slowing down. It is about something I call the recovery wave, a structured, science-backed rhythm that retrains your nervous system to oscillate, to actually come down, so that your output on the other side becomes cleaner, sharper, and more sustainable than anything you have ever produced while running on fumes. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share in the next 20 minutes could genuinely change the way you operate for the rest of your life. And before we go in, if you are new here, welcome to VitaWave. This channel exists because we believe something most wellness content has gotten completely backwards. Health is not a destination. It is a rhythm you learn to ride. We don't just treat symptoms here. We decode your biological waves to turn back the clock from the inside out. That's not a tagline. That is an operating principle. And everything we build on this channel, every protocol, every framework, every conversation, it all comes back to that one idea. You are a biological system built on waves, and when you stop riding those waves, the waves start riding you. Let's get into it. The paradox of the high-functioning exhausted. I want you to picture someone. They're successful, they're driven, they show up every single day, early meetings, late nights, full calendar, high output. From the outside, they look like someone who has it together. Their work is getting done, their goals are moving. Nobody around them would ever describe them as someone who is struggling. But in private, that person is running on empty in a way that terrifies them. They lie awake at night with a racing mind that will not turn off. They feel simultaneously exhausted and unable to fully rest. Caffeine stops working the way it used to. Small frustrations hit harder than they should. They forget words mid-sentence. They feel a kind of flatness, not sadness exactly, but a muted version of themselves, like someone turned the brightness down on the whole experience of their life. Sound familiar? This is what I call the wired but tired state. And I want to be very precise about what is actually happening inside the body here. Because this is not laziness, this is not weakness, this is not some casual phrase for being a little overworked. This is a measurable physiological event. Your nervous system has been in sympathetic overdrive for so long that it has actually begun to suppress your capacity for rest at the cellular level. Let me break that down. Your autonomic nervous system operates on a spectrum. On one end, you have the sympathetic state, fight, flight, alert, go. On the other, the parasympathetic, rest, digest, recover, rebuild. That rhythm is not optional. It is how you are biologically wired to function. But here is what modern high-performance culture has quietly done to millions of people. It's rewarded the activation side of that spectrum so aggressively, more output, more hustle, more availability, more productivity, that the recovery side has essentially been trained out of existence. Your body learned over time that rest is not safe, that slowing down means falling behind, that a quiet moment is a moment wasted, And so even when you try to sleep, even when you sit down and close your eyes, your system doesn't believe you. It keeps the cortisol flowing. It keeps the alertness dialed up. It keeps waiting for the next threat that your calendar already told it is coming tomorrow morning. That's the trap. And it is not your fault that you're in it, but it is absolutely your responsibility to understand how to get out. The hidden biology of adrenaline overload. Here is what chronic stress actually does to your body at the biological level. And I need you to listen carefully here, because this is the part most people skip, and it's the part that explains everything. When your brain perceives a threat, whether that threat is a deadline, a difficult conversation, financial pressure, social media conflict, or even just the relentless noise of your notification stream, it sends a signal to your adrenal glands. Those two small glands sitting on top of your kidneys fire off a cascade of hormones, adrenaline first, then cortisol. This is your body's emergency broadcast system. Now, in the short term, this is genius engineering. Your heart rate goes up, blood rushes to your muscles, your brain sharpens, your digestion pauses, your immune response temporarily quiets. Every non-essential function gets rerouted so you can focus on surviving the immediate challenge. The problem is that your nervous system can't distinguish between a predator in the forest and a passive-aggressive email from your boss at 11:30 at night. The biological response is identical. The hormones are identical. The suppression of your recovery systems is identical. And when this happens not once, not twice, but dozens of times a day, every day for months or years, something shifts. The first thing to go is your cortisol rhythm. In a healthy body, cortisol should peak sharply in the morning, that's your biological alarm clock, and then taper progressively through the day, hitting its lowest point at night so your nervous system can finally exhale. But in chronic adrenaline overload, that curve flattens. The morning peak gets blunted, so you wake up feeling like you're already behind, and the evening low never fully arrives, so you lie in bed with your biology still braced for impact. The second thing to go is your heart rate variability. HRV, the slight beat-to-beat variation in your heart rhythm, is one of the most sensitive and reliable markers of nervous system resilience we have. When your HRV is high, your body is fluid, adaptive, and ready to shift between states. When chronic stress crushes your HRV down, what you are really seeing is a nervous system that has lost its flexibility. It is stuck on high. It is rigid. It cannot come down. And the third, and perhaps the most underappreciated consequence, is what happens to your prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain responsible for clear thinking, emotional regulation, long-term planning, and creativity. Under prolonged cortisol exposure, the prefrontal cortex starts to shrink in activity. Connections weaken. Decision fatigue sets in faster, your emotional brakes get softer. And the amygdala, the ancient threat detection center of the brain, becomes hyperactive, scanning constantly for danger, amplifying every stressor, and making the whole cycle progressively harder to break. This is the biology of the wired but tired state. It is not in your head, it is in your hormones, your heart rhythm, and your neuroarchitecture. But here is the important part, and this is where the conversation shifts. All of this is reversible, not with a supplement, not with a weekend, not with a vacation that your brain spends mostly dreading the return from. It's reversible with something much more elegant than that. It's reversible with rhythm. The mechanics of the recovery wave. I want to introduce you to a concept that has fundamentally changed the way I work with patients who have been locked in this cycle. I call it the recovery wave. And the core idea is deceptively simple. Your biology does not recover in chunks. It recovers in waves. Most people think of rest as something that happens in big, scheduled blocks. You work for 12 hours, then you sleep for 8. You grind Monday through Friday, then you collapse on Sunday. You run a project until you are completely spent, then you take a week off and hope it resets you. This is a batching model of recovery, and it is almost completely ineffective for the wired but tired nervous system, because by the time you get to those big rest blocks, your cortisol system is so dysregulated that the rest can't even penetrate. Think about it this way. If you tense a muscle continuously for 6 hours straight, and then someone tells you to relax, that muscle does not immediately let go. The tension has become the new default. You have to consciously, deliberately, systematically retrain it to release. The same is true for your nervous system. The recovery wave operates on a completely different principle. Instead of waiting for a recovery window to arrive, you build micro-recoveries into the architecture of your day. Deliberate, physiologically specific moments of down-regulation, as short as 90 seconds, as long as 6 minutes, strategically positioned throughout your most demanding hours. Not as a sign of weakness, not a productivity hack, but a biological non-negotiable. Here's the science behind why this works. When you shift from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic recovery, even briefly, you trigger a measurable hormonal response. Cortisol begins to clear, inflammatory markers decrease, heart rate variability climbs, the prefrontal cortex re-engages, and critically, your body learns through repetition that safety is available, that coming down is not a threat, that the oscillation is normal and desirable. Over time, and we are talking weeks, not months, the nervous system begins to rebuild its natural rhythm. The cortisol curve restores itself. The HRV numbers climb back up. Sleep quality improves, not because you're spending more hours in bed, but because when your head hits the pillow, your biology actually believes it's safe to go offline. That's the recovery wave, not a passive collapse, an active, rhythmic oscillation between high output and deliberate physiological stillness. And the protocols that drive it are simpler than you might expect. Daily protocols for nervous system resets. Let me give you the actual tools, because understanding the biology matters, but what transforms a life is what you do with it on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, when you're 3 meetings deep and your inbox is on fire. Protocol 1, the physiological sigh, 90 seconds. This is your fastest and most portable nervous system reset, and it's backed by research out of Stanford. Here's how it works. You take a normal inhale through the nose, and then at the top of that breath, before you exhale, you take a second, sharp inhale to fully inflate the lungs. Then you release with a long exhale through the mouth. The double inhale re-inflates the alveoli in your lungs, tiny air sacs that collapse slightly under stress, and the extended exhale activates the vagus nerve, which is the primary line of communication between your brain and your rest and digest system. 1 round starts the shift. 2 rounds deepens it. 3 rounds done with full intention, and most people can feel a measurable drop in their physiological alertness within 60 to 90 seconds. Not because they're faking it, because the biology is responding exactly as designed. Use this before a high-stakes meeting. Use it after a difficult conversation. Use it in your car before you walk back into your home. It's not meditation. It's not a ritual. It's a direct lever into your autonomic nervous system. Protocol 2, the sensory floor, 3 minutes. At the neurological level, one of the most powerful ways to interrupt a cortisol spiral is to forcefully redirect your brain's attention from abstract threat processing back to immediate sensory reality. The brain can't fully maintain a future threat narrative and a present moment sensory experience at the same time.
So, here's the exercise. At least twice during your workday, ideally mid-morning and mid-afternoon, I want you to take 3 minutes and place your complete and undivided attention on 5 physical sensations in your immediate environment. The weight of your body in the chair, the texture of a surface under your fingers, the temperature of the air in your nostrils as you breathe, a sound in the middle distance, the color and quality of the light around you. This is a neurological interrupt. You're literally rerouting blood flow from your threat processing circuitry back into your sensory cortex. And the downstream effect, the softening of the jaw, the drop in shoulder tension, the slight slowing of the breath, is measurable and real. Protocol 3, the movement exhale, 5 to 7 minutes. Cortisol is a stress hormone that is biologically intended to be burned through physical output. When your ancestors activated the flight or flight response, they ran, climbed, or thought, and the cortisol was metabolized through that physical output. But modern stress rarely has a physical outlet. We sit at our desks while our biology is pumping out stress hormones with nowhere to go, and they accumulate. Once a day, ideally in the late afternoon when your cortisol would naturally be dropping, I want you to take 5 to 7 minutes of deliberate, low-intensity rhythmic movement, a slow walk, especially outdoors with natural light stretching with a focus on your hip flexors, your neck, and your chest, the muscles that contract under chronic stress, or simply shaking, yes, literally shaking your limbs, which is actually a documented physiological discharge mechanism used by animals naturally after a threatening event.
You are not trying to exercise. You are metabolizing stored stress chemistry. There is a difference, and that distinction matters. The micro-recovery schedule, your full-day blueprint. Here is how these 3 protocols map onto a high-pressure workday. 7:30 a.m. Before checking your phone or email, do Protocol 1. Start the day in your window of parasympathetic openness, not in reactive mode. 10:30 a.m. After your first block of deep work, Protocol 2. 3 minutes of sensory grounding before moving to the next task. 1 p.m. Lunch without your screen. Digestion is a parasympathetic function. Eating while stressed literally impairs it. 20 minutes of genuine sensory presence at your meal. 3 p.m. Protocol 3. Movement exhale. Go outside if you can. 5 minutes is enough. 6:30 p.m. Protocol 1 again. The physiological sigh as a transition ritual between work self and home self. 9:30 p.m. Protocol 2. In low light. This primes your brain for sleep by anchoring it in sensory present tense reality rather than tomorrow's agenda. 6 touch points, none longer than 7 minutes. Total investment under 30 minutes across your entire day. And the cumulative effect of those 6 moments over 4 weeks is a measurable, documented shift in your baseline cortisol rhythm and HRV recovery speed. This is the recovery wave in practice. Living beyond the burnout cycle. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking up, not snapping awake in cortisol anxiety before your alarm, but waking up gradually with a body that actually feels like it rested. Imagine sitting down to your most complex, cognitively demanding work and experiencing that rare, clean clarity, the kind where ideas come fast and the connections feel obvious, and you're not just executing tasks, but genuinely thinking. Imagine navigating a difficult conversation without your emotional brakes failing you. Imagine feeling genuinely present with the people you love in the evenings instead of a muted, half-there version of yourself who is technically in the room but emotionally already gone. That is not a fantasy. That is what a regulated nervous system produces. It does not mean you become slower. It does not mean you become softer. Every athlete, every elite performer, every high-output individual who is committed to oscillation, to truly cycling between activation and recovery, reports the same thing. Their ceiling goes up. Not because they pushed harder, because they finally started giving their biology the rhythmic signal it had been asking for. Now, what about 2026? Because the honest conversation has to include the environment we're actually living in. Digital culture in 2026 has created a stimulus environment that your nervous system was never designed to handle. The average person now receives more novel information in a single day than a person in the 18th century processed in a lifetime. The notifications, the news cycle, the social inputs, the ambient uncertainty of a world that's changing faster than anyone can meaningfully process. All of this is chronically activating the threat detection system of your brain without providing the resolution signal that your biology requires to complete the cycle. You cannot control the pace of the world, but you can build a personal rhythm that is resilient enough to move through it without being consumed by it. That is what the recovery wave ultimately offers you. Not just a set of techniques, a different relationship with your own biology. One where you stop treating rest as a reward you have to earn and start treating it as a biological necessity that makes everything else possible. Here's your call to action, and I want to make this concrete, not inspirational. Tonight, not next week, not when things calm down. Tonight, I want you to do one thing. Take 3 minutes before you get into bed and do Protocol 2, the sensory floor. 5 physical sensations in your immediate environment, felt with full presence. No agenda, no optimization, just your body in a room, being a body in a room. That's your first recovery wave. That is the beginning of oscillation. And tomorrow, watch what happens when your alarm goes off. If this landed for you today, if somewhere in this conversation you recognized yourself in the wired but tired pattern, or if you felt something shift in understanding how your biology actually works, then I want you to do one more thing before you leave. Subscribe to VitaWave, because this is not a one-time conversation. What we build on this channel is a cumulative framework, one video building on the last, each one adding another piece to the picture of what it actually means to live in genuine alignment with your biology. Next time, we're going to go even deeper into the specific foods, minerals, and circadian inputs that either accelerate or suppress your nervous system's ability to complete the recovery cycle. You won't want to miss that one. And remember, wherever you are in this journey, whatever version of tired you walked in with today, health is not a destination. It's a rhythm you learn to ride. See you in the next wave.